Small businesses are being hit the hardest by the pandemic's economic fallout, yet many small businesses, particularly minority-owned businesses, are not getting access to the Paycheck Protection Program as we in Congress intended, largely because banks have chosen to give these loans to their preferred clients. So, Controller Otting, Vice Chair Quarles, and Chair McWilliams, could you give me a yes or no answer as to whether you've provided guidance to the banks you regulate on how to set up a PPP lending process that honors fair lending requirements?
Senator Menendez, this is Joseph Otting. We did issue a bulletin to the banks, encourage them to document their lending practices and procedures, and also with an emphasis on low to moderate income areas across America and the activities that they're doing in those markets.
That's an encouragement, but not a actual guidance.
I think if you saw the bulletin, which we'd be happy to pass on to your office, clearly we gave them direction of the expectations.
Can I hear from the other witnesses?
Senator Menendez, sorry, Rodney, go ahead.
This is Rodney Hood from the NCUA. We are certainly encouraging our credit unions of all asset sizes to embrace the Paycheck Protection Program, Senator Menendez. In fact, I call our CEOs of credit unions each and every day where I talk to them about the PPP, and I'm very pleased to report that our MDI credit unions, our CDFI credit unions are all reporting incidents where they are making loans to these Main Street service providers.
But the question for all of you, and I already got it from Controller Otting, is not encouragement, guidance in terms of fair lending.
Yes,
Chair
sir,
McWilliams,
we're offering the guidance.
Have you issued guidance? Hello, Chair McWilliams.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you're still talking to Chairman Hood. I apologize. We have issued a financial institution letter that stipulates how these programs are done. We will enforce fair lending laws. We always do. It's a mandate that the FDIC has, as well as the other prudential regulators. And to the extent that we need to do anything more, we're open to considering what else needs to be done. But the fair lending laws, whether or not we issue specific guidance in connection with PPP, they stand and they have to be implemented, and banks know they have to abide by them. Otherwise, we will enforce the law as it stands.
We at NCUA would take that same posture.
Well, look, the reality is that encouraging is not the same thing as giving exact guidance on how fair lending applies to PPP loans. The Federal Reserve and the FDIC have done nothing. Banks' decisions on who gets access to this pool of almost $700 billion worth of loans will likely determine which small businesses survive. And it seems to me, as regulators, you all have a duty to ensure that minority small business owners and underserved communities have access to the PPP. The Center for Responsible Lending estimates that 95% of Black-owned businesses and 91% of Latino-owned businesses are unlikely to receive PPP loans. That's just an absolute failure that I think regulators should be at the very forefront of making sure that there is a very clear guidance as to when we expect fair lending to take place in all of these experiences. And I would urge you all to do it. Let me just turn to something else. COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare all of our country's lending problems, and the disparities in access to the PPP is probably the clearest example of how our banking system works for some, but leaves others behind. Minority-owned businesses are not getting PPP loans. Banks are only processing PPP loan applications from their preferred customers, and some banks are even providing preferential treatment to their biggest customers, leaving out small businesses, minority-owned businesses, and the unbanked. Controller Otting, and in light of this, don't you think you need to revisit your proposed CRA rule?
Actually, we think we should accelerate it because it'll drive more dollars into low to moderate income communities across America. And a lot of the comments that we got will allow us to do that and build a program that will allow us to serve in low to moderate income areas.
Well, let me just close by saying that's good for you to say. But your proposed changes to CRA do not encourage lending to small businesses, including minority-owned businesses. Your proposal will allow banks to get even more CRA credit for loans of up to $2 million to businesses with up to $2 million in revenue. But according to the CFPB, 95% of small, 97% of minority-owned businesses, 98% of all women-owned businesses of less than $1 million. So, aside forward, your CRA changes are not going to help small businesses get access to credit, not during the COVID pandemic and afterwards. So, I urge you all to review your CRA changes because it's just not going to help, and that's what we hear consistently across the spectrum.